Hi everyone, welcome back to another gameplay of Infinitode 2. So welcome to another episode of my tutorial guide series. In this episode we're gonna take a look at the modifiers. Now modifiers are yet another aspect of the game that it's very important for you to understand properly and to use to increase the overall efficiency of your towers and your gameplay, to achieve also higher scores. You can find the miners exactly as you find the towers. When you click on top of a platform, you can place your towers up here, or if you click here, you see that you open up the window for your modifiers. There are a total of 8 modifiers. They're going to have a certain cost, exactly as the towers. This cost is the coins. And now, depending on the amount of research, trophies, and star research that you have, you're gonna have different amounts of modifiers. You're gonna have greater stats as well. So exactly like towers, these modifiers can increase in terms of number and in terms of stats through research. Now, a very important thing about these modifiers is the fact that exactly as what happens for Crusher. So if you have one Crusher in the game and you want to place another one, see that the cost of the next one is increased, and the more Crushers you have, the higher this cost becomes. That's exactly what happens also to modifiers. If you place a modifier of one kind, let's say for example this blue one right here that it's called a search. If you place one, the first one costs 50 coins. You see that the second one though costs 70. And if we're gonna place a third one, it's gonna be 95. And so on. So you can see that it becomes increasingly more expensive depending on how many you have at the same time. So that's something that happens only for modifiers and for the Crusher tower. So I just wanted to explain to you before we go now into detail about each of the modifiers. So let's start here with the first one, the cheapest one, that it's called balance. The game description is this one: evenly distributes experience between nearest towers. Doesn't diminish experience if this leads to a decrease of the tower's level. Now, first of all, this modifier only works if you have at least 2 towers close to it. If you only have one, it's useless. So remember that modifiers are going to affect the whole area around your towers. So for example, in this case, because I placed the modifier right here and there are 3 platforms that are touching this central one, the towers that are going to be affected by the modifier are going to be these 3. If you place towers in other spots, they're not going to be affected. So as I said before, in order to for this modifier to even work, you have to use 2 towers. And I'm going to just show you how it works, because I think it's going to be much more easy to understand how it works as you see it, rather than just explaining it theoretically. So this is the only modifier that also has an upgrade level. So it you can upgrade it to give more experience per second. So what this modifier does is very simple. It tries to give to all the towers that's going to touch, right? It's going to try to give the same experience so that the towers have the same experience between them. We're talking here about this number up here. See, it's level 9 and it's about halfway through. Instead, this tower is level 7. So this modifier, what it's doing is like it's taking away some experience from this tower and is giving it to the other one to level them up. So that's pretty much how it works. And if you would have more towers, it would take even more experience from the tower, try to level them up. Personally, just by trying this modifier out, I think the best upgrade level is level 3. If you upgrade this modifier level 4 or level 5, that is the maximum level, it's gonna be just too expensive, and I don't think really it's that important. So like level 3, where you can give up to 15 experience per second. So this takes 15 experience per second from the tower with the highest experience, and it gives it to the other one. You can see that here is still giving it. Now what's gonna happen is that when these towers have the same experience, see that now they have the same amount of experience, the modifier is constantly balancing the experience between them so that they always have the same amount, or they're very close to the same amount. Remember, of course, that the tower that attacks the enemies and that kills them is the one that gains experience. And so the modifier here, what it's doing is permanently taking the experience from this first tower and is giving it to the other one. So also the other one, in this case, you can see it's level 12. That's pretty much it. That's how the modifier works. And let's move on now to the second one. This one is called Search. It's going to have a base cost of 50, so double the cost of balance. And now this modifier is going to increase the range of all nearby towers. And now the amount of range it gives depends on research. So if you upgrade through research, this modifier is going to be able to give more range. And now the main effect of this modifier is this one right here, that nearby towers will constantly search for new enemies even if the current target is still alive. And this is something that is especially good for towers with damage over time effects. So Venom and Flamethrower are going to be the two towers that are going to mostly benefit from this, because of the fact that each time you attack a new enemy, you gain experience. So especially with these towers that by applying a damage over time effect, they can still damage the enemy, so they can still receive the experience. And at the same time, they can start attacking another enemies. This modifier is the best one. For the other towers, maybe Splash could also benefit a little bit from it, but that's it. Like the other towers do not really benefit that much from this modifier. Because of the fact that they can always, they don't have a damage over time effect. So if they attack one enemy and then they search for new enemies, they will not really be gaining more experience because they will stop doing damage to the first enemy. So that's why I think the two towers that really benefit a lot from this modifier are Flamethrower and Venom. So that's pretty much it. Third modifier here is going to be Power. This modifier is going to give, once again, a certain percentage of extra power, depending on how much research you have, to all nearby towers. And it's going to consume 1 experience per second of the most experienced tower for bonus of each tower. If, once again, as it happened for balance, if this leads to a decrease of the tower's level, it's not going to occur. The base cost of this modifier is 100, so it's still more expensive. And now this modifier works in a very simple way. Once again, if we just place here some towers, the modifier is going to just increase the power. So the number, you can see it right here. And in my case, it's going to give an additional 8.4% power. So you can see that now these towers have 9.4. If I will have to place another basic, you can see that this one is 1.0. And remember that power increases all the stats other than range and the special stat. So if we just compare, for example, this tower that has the extra power and this one, you can see that the damage is higher, the attack speed is slightly higher, the rotation speed and the projectile speeds also are higher. Now this modifier, of course, is not going to give this extra power for free. It's going to consume, once again, 1 experience per second. Remember that when the game talks about experience, it's talking about this bar up here, so this XP. And therefore, it's going to consume 1 experience from the most experienced tower, so from the tower that has the highest level or the highest amount of experience, for each tower that is buffing. So in this case, because there are 3 towers that is buffing, it would take 3 experience per second from the most experienced tower. So let's just, once again, just do a quick demonstration so you guys can see. If I go slow, you can see that the tower here is gaining experience by killing and by attacking the enemies. But at the same time, you can see that there is the -3 that once every second occurs, and that's because of the fact that the modifier is taking away that experience. Of course, in this case, it's not like balance, so the other towers do not gain any bonus experience, they're just gonna get more power. So that's how it works. And now because of this, based on my experience, I've seen that this modifier is best used when you have a tower that is already max level. So when a tower is, for example, level 20, so it cannot increase in level anymore, that's where it really doesn't hurt anymore placing a power modifier, because it cannot even consume the experience from this tower, because the tower is max level, and as it says here, it cannot decrease the tower's level. So this modifier is best placed when you have at least one tower max level, and therefore if you place it, you don't have to worry anymore about this consumption of experience, and you can just place other towers close to it. They can get the benefit of the bonus power, and yeah, so that's just it. Of course, if you do use it instead on a tower that is not max level, you're gonna be delaying how quickly it can level up. So always remember about that. Fourth modifier is called damage. This one as well, it's very simple. It's going to increase the damage of towers that are on the sides of the modifier, and it's going to reduce the attack speed of towers that are on the corners of the modifier. Now, once again, the amount of damage that it gives depends on the amount of research you have. Now here, sides and corners are, we're talking here about the platforms that are going to be around the modifier. So if we consider this one the central platform, you can see that this square right here, this one, and this one are going to be considered the sides, so like west, east, north, and south. Instead, the corners are going to be this square right here, this one, and this one. All right, so that's how the game recognizes like side and corner. And therefore, if I place, for example, here 2 towers, one at the side and one at the corner, you can see that the one at the side has the increased damage, and the one at the corner has actually decreased attack speed. See that here, the normal attack speed will be 2.56. This one is 2.43. So because of how this modifier works, when you place like this modifier, you're always going to have your towers on the sides. So you don't want to place towers in the corners. On the corners of this modifier, you can either place other modifiers, right? Or you can place, for example, towers that you don't really care about this losing of attack speed. For example, a freezing tower. So a freezing tower, you don't have to worry about losing this attack speed because you don't lose freezing speed. And therefore, for example, this is a tower that you can clearly place and don't worry about this loss of attack speed. Other towers, for example, can be flamethrower or I think also laser, crasher, like all the towers that do not have attack speed as a substat are not gonna really lose anything from being placed at the corners, and therefore that's what you can do. So this is how this fourth modifier works. And now the fifth one, that is called attack speed, is exactly the same as damage. The only difference is that the towers on the sides are going to have their attack speed increased, and the damage is going to be reduced on the corners. So it's exactly the same, but it's opposite. So it's going to increase attack speed, it's going to reduce the damage. The sixth modifier, it's called mining speed, and this one is going to increase by a certain, once again, percentage that depends on your research, the mining speed of nearby miners. But also it's going to reduce rotation and projectile speed of nearby towers by 5%. And another thing is that nearby miners will not be able to mine items. So once again, this is a miner that in this case doesn't affect, so doesn't give any buffs to your towers as like the other ones that we've seen so far, but actually gives a buff to a miner. So of course, this modifier to be useful can only be placed close to a miner. So for example, if I would mine this matrix right here, I would need to place modifiers for this one, so they would affect the miner. So let's just play it like this, because I think that, yeah, that should be enough cash. So if I don't place the modifier, you can see that the base speed is 3.32. If I place it, this speed is increased by 41%. So in this case is 4.68. And you can place another modifier if you want. So you can place as many modifiers as it's possible. So you can place up to 8 modifiers around a single miner, and you can exponentially increase the mining speed. So that's very, very nice. And just remember about the fact that if you have any towers, for example, if we would have a basic tower right here close to the modifier, this tower is losing 5% of rotation speed and projectile speed. Normally these two stats are not really that important, so in my opinion you don't have to worry much about like losing these percentages. But of course that depends on the amount of research. So if you have very little research, then that amount of rotation speed and projectile speed that you lose might really affect negatively your gameplay. So in that case, don't place towers close to this modifier. Try to place them like here, so they are not touching the modifier, and therefore they're not losing the stats. And here, just comparing, you can see this one 159 degrees per second, this one is 167. So that you can see there the decrease of 5%. And another thing is that the miners, you can see that here you can mine items with your miners. But if you have a mining speed modifier, the miner will not be able to mine items. Normally here you mine like custom maps items that are like common or sometimes like even rare, but no more than that. So I wouldn't really think that's something that you lose, so don't really worry. And that's it for this 6th modifier. The 7th one is called Bounty, and it's going to give bonus 2% of the player's current coins, so the ones that the number that you see right here, but no more than 60 coins in my case. So with research, you can actually increase this number right here. So the maximum amount of coins you can earn. This 2% stays always the same. So you can't increase this 2% with research. You can increase this number instead. So the total, the maximum number of coins. And you get this 2% bonus coins each time the enemy wave is defeated. So every time you destroy all the enemies in each wave, that's where you get these bonus coins. Towers placed close to this modifier do not gain coins for killing enemies. So that's something very, very important, and that's why you have to place these modifiers like isolated and away from your towers, especially from the offensive towers. And another thing that it's peculiar to this modifier is the fact that it cannot be placed close to other bounties. So you can't place this modifier close to other ones of the same type. And as well, the price depends on the difficulty. So for example here, if I want to place a, I don't know, like let's do balance, right? 2 balance modifiers, see that I can place them close to one another, and there is no problem with that. Instead, on bounties, you can't. If you try to place another one close, see that here there is a game description that says this modifier can be placed near other modifiers of the same type. So you always have to leave at least one platform of a distance until you can place another bounty in this case. And now the most important thing they need to remember about this modifier is the fact that nearby towers don't gain coins by killing enemies. And therefore, you never want to place your offensive towers close to this modifier, because otherwise they're not going to be able to gain any coins for killing enemies. Once again, there are certain towers that you can actually place that because you can ignore the fact that they don't gain coins. For example, freezing. Freezing, it's a tower that doesn't attack, doesn't kill enemies, so you can't gain any coins, right? And therefore, you can very easily place freezing is close to these modifiers, and you don't really lose anything. You can also place sometimes other towers close to these modifiers. The important thing is that you don't upgrade them. Like even if you place an offensive tower, I don't know, like a tower for like flying enemies, right? The important thing is that you don't upgrade it, so that if you have other towers that can attack flying enemies and you upgrade those instead, they're gonna be the ones that are gonna be able to kill the enemies, and therefore you're not gonna lose any coins. But overall, I would say that try to avoid placing offensive towers close to these modifiers, so in that way you don't lose any coins. And if you actually click on the modifier, you can see that you can see the amount of coins you have generated so far, depending on how much you have played the game, and the efficiency. So remember that it's a 2% of the player's current coins. So in this case is 2% of 157. Now in my case, it would be an efficiency of 5%. So I'm earning pretty much 5% of 60 if I can survive this first wave. Of course, what happens is that as you play on, you can start saving up more coins, and therefore your efficiency increases. And it increases every time. And when you reach the cap, in this case, you can see that 60 coins is the maximum. And therefore, that's why it is 3,000, the amount of coins that is the threshold for me. And that means that even if I can have as current coins more than 3,000, I will not be earning any more coins from the bounty, because the maximum is 60. So you can see that the more the efficiency increases, the more coins you get at the end of the round when you defeat all the enemies. And yeah, these bounties are a very useful modifier to increase your income, to get the extra cash. But unfortunately, one thing that I didn't say before is the fact that this is the modifier that mostly loses out in terms of if you want to place more than one. See that if I place 2 already, and the third one cost is going to be 530, so that's very expensive. And if I would want to place a fourth one, see that now it's 910, so that's a lot of coins that you need to spend on your modifiers. And therefore just be careful about like not spending too much cash on your modifiers, and then you don't have a tower that is strong enough to defeat the enemies. So always you need to try to find like a balance. In this case, you can see that my current coins are more than 3,000, and therefore I have all my bounties at 100% efficiency, so I'm earning 60 coins at the end of each round with each of them. So I'm earning 60 here, 60 here, and 60 here, so that's a total of 180 coins. And yeah, that's just pretty much how bounty works. Another thing about this modifier is the fact that the price also depends on the difficulty. For this map, you can see that the difficulty was 110%. If I move on to either a custom map, or if I play on endless, or if I just play on a more advanced level, let's say for example level 5.8, that the difficulty in this case is 180%, the modifier, the bounty, is gonna cost more. See, now the base cost is 250. It was 180%, 180 coins for 100% difficulty. With this extra 80% difficulty, now it's 70 coins more expensive. And remember that all the subsequent modifiers, are gonna be more and more expensive as well. So everything becomes more expensive. And lastly, let's take a look here at the very last modifier that is called experience. And when any resource is obtained by a nearby miner, this modifier is going to give 32 experience to the nearest towers. In this case, with research, you can increase the amount of experience you can earn. And then it says that takes one cheapest resource from each miner every 10 seconds per tower. So once again, let's suppose that I'm using Scala right here, and I have an experience modifier right here. Now, what this means is that if I place a basic tower here and I try to play on, as soon as this miner is going to start mining resources, see that here is 1, 2. So every time a resource is obtained, this experience modifier is going to steal it, let's just say like that. So it's going to take it, and it's going to give bonus experience to the tower. You can see the huge, the weird spike. You can see that sometimes there is a spike. That's the bonus 32 experience that it's giving to the tower. And of course, if you increase the miner mining speed, you start earning more resources, and therefore the modifier is giving more resources as well, to more experience to your tower, and it's giving it more often, because here the 10 seconds always are the same, right? So if you increase your mining speed, you're really gaining, you're only gaining pretty much. So that's why this modifier is pretty good, especially if you wanna make a tower reach like level 20 or to level up faster. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. Now in this case, it says one cheapest resource because of the fact that if right here, if this source would have like scalar, vector, and for example matrix, the modifier would take always scalar. So the cheapest resource. If it's scalar, then it takes scalar. If it's vector, it takes vector, and so on. So it's never gonna take, for example, the tensor or infer if there are other resources that can be consumed. So that's pretty much how it works. And yeah, that's it for the modifiers. Now another thing that has been added in this 1.8 patch for modifiers is the fact that if you place a modifier, you can see that there is a certain time that you need to wait until you can sell it for the full cost. So if you place a modifier and then you're gonna use it for at least 5 minutes, you can sell it for free pretty much. So you're not gonna be losing any cash. Remember that of course the towers do not work like this. So towers, if you sell them after you have upgraded them or after they have defeated enemies, they're always going to be making you lose a certain percentage. Instead, modifiers don't, but you need to actually place them for at least a certain amount of time. So in this case, it is 5 minutes, and then after these 5 minutes, I will be able to sell, in this case, balance for the full amount of coins. So you can place modifiers for maybe the early game, and then if in the late game you don't need them, you can sell them, and that's it. So this of course applies to any modifier in the game, and therefore especially bounties that are the ones that are going to be the most expensive ones. If you can then sell them later on in the game because you don't need them anymore, or maybe you want to place more towers, then of course you can get back all that cash that you spent to place them, and therefore it's always good. And that's pretty much it. So now we're gonna just take a look at research, because of the fact that, as I said before, you can increase the number of these modifiers and you can increase the stats right here in research. All right, everything can be increased just like that. You can see here the maximum coins earned by bounty as well. and then up here you see the extra mining speed and the extra experience given. As I said before, you can also increase your towers and your modifier stats with the star research, and also through the trophies. So different trophies have different effects, and therefore sometimes they're going to be global effects, sometimes they're going to be effects for specifically built for some towers, as you can see right here. So you can always increase that in this way. And if we take a look at Endless, on Endless, the only thing that changes is the fact that you can purchase, you can have more miners, so you can have a total of 10, and of course all the stats can be further enhanced. So that's the only difference with like normal research, the fact that you can have more and the stats are much higher. You can see here bounties, being able to gain an extra 50 coins, so you gain a total of 100. Here more power, and here of course mining speed, very nice, and the experience given. So yeah, that's the only difference with between normal and endless research. And that's pretty much it for the modifiers. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and see ya. Bye bye.